Well, that was a bit of a struggle. Hey Josh, how you doing? Hey Mike, welcome aboard. Had a bit of a struggle getting on just now. I had to use Streamlabs, which is a tip I got from Chad a while back. But it kept connecting and going and dying 3 seconds later. I don't know if you remember, guys, quite some time ago, it used to do that after 10 seconds. Bang on 10 seconds, it would just disconnect. Hey Jimmy. So I don't really know what was flying tonight, but I'm actually using my old phone, my iPhone 5. And by the way, can you hear me okay? Hello? Good, thank you Josh. Hey Turin, welcome aboard, thanks for joining. Horatio, thank you for joining. There's been so many live events tonight, I haven't had the chance to eat anything. And I wanted to smoke a cigar, but I wasn't sure if I should on an empty stomach. Hey Ed. Ed860, yeah, I like that. So, I guess it's time to... I think I might still go for a cigar. What do you think? Oh, dear me. Hey Maui, haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're well. Okay, I'm coming to the end of these little babies. I've got 2 more after this, and that's it. I haven't bought cigars in a while. Just funds don't really allow. Although I tell a lie, because I was at JJ Fox's last week, and I did pick up a couple then. That's true. Pipe is your choice. Good for you, Josh. Pre-number LCS, smoking great. I'm assuming that you're smoking the egg, the correct egg, Maui? That pipe turned out... I know, did you get an egg? I'm trying to remember which pipe. Yeah, it was an egg, wasn't it? I'm going to light up this La Gloria Cubana, exclusive Spanish regional edition. This is my little Gemini set, which I'm kind of working on. You know, every so often I'm sort of going back into it. Maybe I'll carry on tomorrow, maybe not. This evening I was on Mike's live earlier on, and I was on Eddie's earlier on, and I was sort of making a pipe at the same time. And I've been wanting to make a Canadian for some time. I have made kind of Canadians before, and this is one which, I don't know if you'd call it a Canadian, but it's got a very, very flat shank with some nice grain, but had some serious issues with the bowl, which meant that it was very stunted as a result. But still a cool little pipe. It always reminds me of custom built pipes for some reason. That short, stocky kind of... hey Tim. A short, stocky look to it. Anyway, so I wanted to do a Canadian. So I took out my Northern Briars Canadian as a model, as a muse. This one here. And it's a lovely pipe this. It's a nice grain and a nice brindle stem. Group 4, Northern Briars. Lovely pipe. So I kind of modelled it on that one, but just went my own way in terms of the shape. So here it is, it's where I'm up to at the moment. It's got a nice sleek shape to it. And these are always a challenge to do with 9mm, because you've always got to be careful not to make that bit on the top too thin, and I've just about caught it. Just about caught it. It's okay, there's enough there because it's countersunk as well, so there's enough thickness there. Obviously, whoever smokes it will just have to be careful putting the stem on and off. Hey, Steph and Skip. Fancy seeing you again. So it's got really, really lovely grain. And it's really, you can see the rings there going across. It could be a really fine sandblast as well, but it has got some nice grain there. But I like the shape. The shape worked out well. I'm on the 2nd grit at the moment. Just saying, Steph. I think this is up to... it's kind of just started on 400, so it's the 3rd grit. I had to miss out 320 because I've run out of 320, which is not ideal. Where's my toothbrush? Still a lot of sanding to go. And the thing is with this shape is that there's a lot of hand sanding on this shape because you can't do this on the lathe, the oval shape. I'm not sure why it's not going in. I really don't want to do more of a countersink. That's better. Alright, it's in. So you can't turn this on the lathe because it's oval shanked. So you turn it oval and just get a decent sort of straight oval shank, and then the rest you do on the sanding wheel and by hand. And it's turned out pretty well. Very happy with it. I would like to have a little bit more meat on it over there, but it would have meant having a much bigger stem, and I think it would have just lost the look. It would have just been unbalanced, and as it is now, the shank with the bowl really looks very well balanced as a Canadian. So hopefully that will work out. I hope that stem shank junction won't get wrecked. Hey Mike, Gamecock, haven't seen you in a while, hope you're well. No, it's not going to be a 3-star, unfortunately, because the briar has got a couple of little dots on it, and that you're in the hands of the briar when it comes to that. You can make the finest shaped pipe, but it still can't be a top pipe if the briar's not up to it. My 3-star in case any of you haven't seen it yet, is this little beauty. This is my first 3-star pipe. And there's 20, there's my new stamp, LCS Briars. And there's 3 stars there which I messed up a little bit. I'm still getting used to all the stamping. And then you've got London Made there. So all in all, very, very happy with this pipe. Really turned out beautiful. Just beautiful. James Stumbo, how you doing? Scotty Dashboard, how you doing? Happy Halloween to you too. Hey Jeff, WV. Hey Bona. I mentioned on Eddie's live just a short while ago, I've been very lucky to do a trade with somebody, and although I never ordered a Matches 860 pipe, I will be getting one as a result of a trade. Somebody who bought 2 of them. But it's nice that they all got sold. Yeah, the grain really, you're in the lap of the briar, really, when it comes to this. So you got the same, I mean here you've got a beautiful, there's some really nice straight grain on this pipe, but there's a couple of little specks. So you've got one just there, I mean they're tiny, another one there. They're really small, and I could hide them in the stain quite easily, which I will do, but I won't hide the fact that they're there. But I can camouflage them so the person who owns the pipe eventually can at least have a pipe that won't embarrass him. It's not to say that a pit embarrasses anybody. Halloween dad jokes, okay. I think Daniel was on something before. I'm sure he'll turn up sooner or later. But he was imparting some jokes. I don't know if any of you guys have seen any problems with YouTube, but I tried going on 3 or 4 times, wouldn't work, and that's why I'm on Streamlabs now. Hello Mohammed, how you doing? Charlie, what timing? I was just talking about a little trade I was doing. By the way, anybody that's waiting on a pipe from me, everything has gone out. It was either Wednesday or Thursday, so if you're in the States, you should probably get it in about a week, hopefully. And people who are here in the UK, they've already got theirs. Yeah, with pleasure. This is, which one are you talking about? The new one that I'm in the middle of, or the 3-star? We have been all over the world smoking the Ghost, absolutely. It's been pretty impressive, it really has. Do people have UK flags? No, not as a rule. I mean, you'll always find some, but it's not like in the States. I think you guys, how does it go? God, what is it? Unit, God and country, something like that. If you're in the army, how does it go in the States? Corps, isn't it? Corps, God and country, or is that how it goes? Hey John, come on, somebody can put me right. Come on, Skip. Round shape, Jeff, yeah. Cool, God and country. Okay, hi M Cigar. God, guts and glory, yeah. Anyway, we're not quite like that here. I think you guys, the way you uphold and respect and put on a pedestal people in the army, I think it's quite awesome. And I think your allegiance to, I think, God core, well, like an apple core. I'm sure you meant to say core with a P on the end. God save the Queen. Here, here. In Northern Ireland, yes, okay. I'll stand corrected on that, but here in England, you don't really see it very much. During the elections, you'll see it. During the World Cup, you'll see it. And you'll see it on St George's Day. Well, you'll see the St George's flag on that day. You won't see the Union Jack. But yeah, I think the allegiance that you guys have to your soldiers is really, really very impressive. Okay, we only see it here in the UK. We see it the way you portray it in films, or we might see it on YouTube in clips, with homecomings and things like that, which are very emotional. I mean, that would be emotional anywhere in the world, but I think you guys, more than any other country in the world, you put your army on a pedestal, and I think that's really cool. You have a postcard of the Queen hanging on the wall. So you should, Steph. Absolutely, everybody should have a postcard of the Queen. I'm not sure why, but it's a good thing to do. I'm not sure I would say I was a royalist, but I certainly really have a lot of respect for the Queen. I'm not sure about the younger generations, but the Queen is an exceptional person, I think. My grandmother, who passed away about 15 years ago, she was, she always had, and my grandmother came from Austria, so she wasn't born here, but she took very much on sort of a gentlemanly, with my grandfather, very, very much a gentlemanly kind of way of life. My grandfather used to wear a pinstripe suit and bowler hat, like you'd see in the films, and used to go into the city. He used to work as the chief registrar in the chief rabbi's office, and he was in charge of registering all births, marriages, and deaths in the Jewish community, which was an amazing thing in itself. My grandfather, being Austrian, kind of Germanic, was fastidious about everything. He was very, very into detail. He was an artist as well. So that kind of thing, he had a very critical eye, and I suppose in some ways, nowadays, everything's got a name, so nowadays you might call it OCD, but I wouldn't have called it OCD. I just called it somebody who had a huge amount of talent and took a lot of pride in his work. But yeah, so my grandmother always had a lot of respect for the royal family. And I think, if you asked most people of religion or races who came into this country during the war or after the war, you only have nothing but gratitude. At the end of the day, England took in a huge amount of refugees, and they made it their home, and repaid by helping the economy thrive. It was many communities did that. The Irish, the Afro-Caribbean, the Jews, and latterly Eastern European countries. They've all, repaid the hospitality by putting back into the infrastructure of the country. The British Army has sacrificed more than most militaries, so they should be celebrated. How so? American stranded abroad, okay. Ivan. You have a portrait of Her Majesty in the emergency backnet in my wallet. That's a good one. It's a good question why here we don't fly the flag. I think we should. I think, your country is different in a way because of your history, your relatively young history, your relatively short history. So your patriotism is much more keenly felt, I think, possibly. And you're kind of, you're a young, fledgling country in the grand scheme of things. You've come a long way, but you're youngsters. Whereas we're kind of oldies in the grand scheme of things. The British Empire, which doesn't really exist anymore, but possibly it's something to do with that. I don't know, I haven't really thought about it. Ciao Sandro, how you doing? Yeah, so maybe it's something to do with that. Maybe we're just too blasé about our history, and we still feel superior to other people, a superiority which is certainly misplaced, but still it's in the blood, it's in the history, and possibly that's why we don't feel the need to advertise our Britishness, so we don't put the flag up. On the other hand, it could be because we're hardly British anymore. A lot of it's such a multicultural society nowadays, and I'm not sure what Britishness means anymore. I mean, I feel British to the core, and I'm proud to be British, to be English. I'm proud to be a member of this country, and as every person who is English should be proud of where they live. Obviously, if you're living in a tyrannical society, you wouldn't be proud of it, but thankfully we're not living in an obvious tyrannical society. We can all claim being the victims of tyranny in one way or another, but a lot of it is just superficial victimhood. And I think it's right and proper. It's right and proper for people to be proud of the country that hosts them. At the end of the day, where you live, it provides you with an environment in which to exist. Your family, your friends, a roof over your head, hopefully. And yes, we work hard for that, but still there has to be an infrastructure which allows you to exist and to be fruitful and to prosper, hopefully. And I think every person has a duty to be grateful to the nation that hosts them. I didn't take it badly, Charlie, not at all. I'm just spouting. Daniel's got a new phone. Congratulations, Daniel. The way the world is going now, do you think there will ever be a World War III? Who knows? Who knows? Hey, Sean. You'd give Your Majesty your kidney. I don't think they'd want to be opening her up, to be honest, at her age. Having a monarch prevents somebody declaring themselves Prime Minister for life. Jeff, yeah, I can hear that, but the Queen's not going to be able to prevent anybody pronouncing themselves as Prime Minister for life. Obviously, another word for dictatorship. But I don't think that'll ever happen here. You can never say never about anything in this life. A year ago, who would have thought that we'd be where we are today? But anything can happen. I'm in the middle of one, Daniel. I'll show you that in a minute. You can't say anything. You can never say never about anything. But in terms of World War III, one thing I can tell you is it won't last very long, if it does happen. So the pipe I'm in the middle of making today is this Canadian Hey Eric, so I'm still in the sanding stage, making this Canadian. But I've been busy on the various lives tonight, so didn't get a chance to finish it, but we'll finish it tomorrow, hopefully all being well. I was out in the garage going through one of my drawers, and I came across a pipe which I made a while back, and I can't believe that I haven't really been pushing it to sell it, because the grain on this one is probably the best grain I've had on any pipe that I've ever made, even better than the 3-star. And that's this pipe here. The grain on this pipe is just unbelievable. Got straight grain on both sides, all the way around. Bird's eye on the top, bird's eye on the bottom, and literally 360 degrees straight grain. This could be a 3-star, I guess. No reason why not. The cyber war is the Third World War. Yeah, you might be right there, Tim. I made that pipe a while ago. It's been sitting in my drawer in the garage, in my workshop for some reason. What determines 3 stars? I think I just showed you that. Hey, Art. I have heated the tip of the stamp, Daniel. The only problem with that is that it gets black, and you end up getting a black colouring on the stamp, on the wood. But I'm getting the hang of it. The British lost their way, Art says. Best police and the best Secret Service. I think certainly political correctness has become a big problem. Now, what I meant was I just showed you the pipe, and the pipe speaks for itself, John. Essentially, a 1-star pipe is a pipe I'm happy with. That everything's turned out well, the drilling is good, the shaping is good, and it's a run-of-the-mill good pipe that I'm very, very happy with. A 2-star pipe is already something exceptional. It's got exceptional grain, the shaping is just something I'm extra happy with, the stem, but mostly the grain. The grain really has an effect on my rating quite a lot. So if the grain is exceptional, it gets upgraded to a 2-star. And obviously 3-star, I've been making pipes now for nearly 2 years, and the first time I graded a pipe a 3-star was this week. So that gives you an idea about how much it takes for me to go to a 3-star. And it's just the grain has to be exceptional. And on this particular pipe, in my opinion, the grain is exceptional. And on the one that I just showed, I think it's exceptional as well. And I may well grade that a 3-star. My website, actually, I've got a load of pipes have been uploaded today. My son just finished uploading a load of pipes today, so hopefully that's going to go live again in the next couple of days. Absolutely smoking the ghost. Tastes change, the world turns, yeah. And yeah, rest in peace, Sean Connery, one of my favourite actors. I think many people would say the same thing. For me, Two of his films. I mean, obviously, you can rattle off loads and loads of films that he was in. The series that he did with as the father of no. Oh, my brain. But anyway, for me, the two favourite films is Hunt for Red October and The Untouchables. I think for me, the Indiana Jones movies, thank you. Hunt for Red October, I just, as a film, it wasn't the best film in the world. It was gripping and enjoyable, but for me, it was his stature in that film is just so Sean Connery. And it's just the stature that he portrays. His leadership is just there to see. He's running that boat, and he oozes the leadership of that boat, and the way he commands it, the way he just he's just on a different level as the leader of that boat. And for me, he did that fantastically. And yeah, he was the best Bond at the time, that's for sure. I think to compare Bonds it doesn't really work. For me, each Bond brought its own character to the role. Sean Connery, brought a little bit more of a serious note compared to what's his name, Roger Moore. Roger Moore had this little twinkle in his eye, and for me, Roger Moore was the funniest Bond. And then you got, for instance, Timothy Dalton was somewhere in between, but he just didn't have that charisma for me. And Daniel Craig, completely different ballgame. You can't. Daniel Craig is just acting as a serious role. Yes, there are some comedic elements because that's James Bond, but that's not what he brings to the role. He brings just muscle and brawn, and quite unfeeling kind of character to the role. Yeah, I think, it's also an age thing, depending on the ones you grew up watching. So those are your favourite ones. So at the time, it used to be Roger Moore for me, because I just connected to his character, and he just made me laugh. Pierce Brosnan was also somewhere in between. He had this a little bit of a comedic bent, a little bit more so than a lot more than Daniel Craig. But Pierce Brosnan, yeah, he was alright. He was alright. The greats, you can really see who are the greats by how many films they did, I think. I'm not sure how many Sean Connery did, and I'm not sure how many Roger Moore did. But for me, the ones for Lazenby and these guys, it was before my time. For me, it was Roger Moore, Sean Connery, just about caught the tail end of that. Roger Moore, and then Daniel Craig. In between, you had Timothy Dalton and Pierce Brosnan. Pierce Brosnan was, I think, better than Timothy Dalton. Connery did 7. Well, there you go. Jordan, right, okay. You got all the facts there, I guess, Tim. I don't know. Was he any good, Lazenby? I'm not sure if I've actually seen that film. We had some fireworks here earlier on. I'm not sure if that was for Halloween or to bring in the lockdown that we're about to have. Maybe it was people celebrating that they get to stay home again. In case you haven't heard, we're going back into lockdown this Thursday here in England. And the Irish and the Scottish and the Welsh are all, possibly will follow suit, we'll see. They all take great pride in their independence. And yeah, we are shutting down this Thursday. It is quite interesting to see how the different countries in the Union are handling. Christmas is certainly cancelled, yeah. Do I think 2021 will bring a vaccine? I haven't the foggiest idea. Yeah, I think I would agree with you on that, Tim. This whole concept of breaking the chain, I forget what they call it now, short stop, short back, whatever they call it, circuit breaker. I think that makes sense, and I think it's funny enough, I said to my wife a good few weeks ago, and I said what they need to do is to just have a short, sharp lockdown every so often, just to stop that exponential growth, that doubling up. If they did that every, say, 2 months or so, for a week or two, it would hopefully hold things at bay until a vaccine is found. But I think even if they do have a vaccine, it's like the flu. I actually had my flu jab just the other day, on Friday. It's the first time I've had a flu jab, but now that I'm over 50, our surgery was offering it to all over 50s. But it's very possible that it's something that we'll always have, in the same way as we have the flu. The flu was a big killer and still is a killer each year, and it's very possible that this COVID will remain as another virus going around each year, and it may well become a seasonal thing that people succumb to it. Old, frail people or people with underlying issues will succumb to it if they catch it. And even with a vaccine, it'll, same as the flu, it'll continue to mutate. It's very possible that it won't be eradicated. There are some things in history that we eradicated, things like smallpox and measles and these kind of things, although some of it has seen a bit of a comeback. But it's very possible that it'll continue in that kind of way. Yeah, Europe is pretty much, yeah. I mean, you guys will follow. I mean, that's just the way it's been. Yeah, Art, I know that's your opinion, always has been, and in principle you're right. Measles, yeah. I would agree with you in principle. It's just that people do not use their common sense. If everybody would be careful, and everybody and the old and the infirm would stay away, and other people would stay away from them, then and people would keep their distance, then yeah. But it just doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect society, and because it passes on so easily, you're going to end up killing a lot of people. Daniel does have some videos up here. You can check him out. So if you want to know Here he is, Steph. Head on over to his channel. Steph, woe back, easy, easy. Daniel's a gentle soul, and he likes to ask questions, and we like to give him the answers. Yeah, John, you know, in a perfect world, that would be great. Unfortunately, you know what? There was enough time for that to have worked, and it didn't. People were dying all over the place. You're 100% right. You and Art, 100% right. But it's the world just isn't that kind of great space. That's alright, Steph. Daniel's a good guy. Very inquisitive, but he keeps the live streams going with his questions, and that's we're all very grateful for that. Yeah, Art, I know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is. It doesn't work. Your suggestion just doesn't work. I don't see it working anyway. Unfortunately, I wish it would, but it just doesn't. Because, hey bird, in your scenario, what you're saying is that there will be a separation of the ages, and that means anybody over 60 is never going to see their kids again. They're never going to hug their grandchildren again. And you know, that's a situation nobody wants to consider, and people want to try and find a way to eradicate it. I don't think lockdown will sort the problem out, Art. I don't think anybody thinks that it will sort it out. They're just trying to stem the exponential growth of the virus. Yeah, Josh, 100%. Herd immunity, John, that was the British position early on. But they very quickly changed their minds when they saw how many people were dying in Italy, I think. I mean, you're talking about within a very short space of time, they were at something like 4,000 or 5,000 people dying every day. And that's not just another thing out there in the world which kills people. You know, a lot of people are saying that you know, cancer kills people, people get knocked over crossing the road, you know, people die in car accidents. But there's a huge difference. I've said this many times. There's a huge difference between those causes of death. You can't catch cancer. You can't die because somebody else gets knocked over in the street. But you can walk around being asymptomatic, not knowing that you've got COVID-19, pass it on to somebody else. He may not die. You may not see the results of your passing it on, but maybe 10 sort of steps down the chain, somebody dies or somebody gets really severe COVID-19 as a result of you walking around or touching something, you know, whilst you've got COVID on your hands. So there is a difference between COVID and all the other causes of death in the world. You're right, eyes are not covered, and eyes are very susceptible, but you don't pass on through your eyes. You can catch it yourself, but you don't pass on through your eyes. But yes, touching your eyes and then touching stuff, yeah, 100%. But it certainly the masks reduces it. It doesn't mean don't do anything because you can't protect yourself 100%. If you can protect yourself 50% or 80%, that's also got merit. It depends, Daniel. A lot of the blocks that you get, it really depends. So, for instance, just to give you an example, if you look at this pipe here, you can see that it's fairly level. Okay, so it's worth keeping this plateau because it looks fairly level. It's obviously up and down because it's a plateau, but in the grand scheme of things, it's quite level. Most plateaus, I wouldn't say most, but a lot of plateaus that you get, they're literally all over the place. It's like a huge sort of slant, and it just doesn't look attractive. So a lot of them, you just use plateau in order to get the straight grain, but you just shave off the plateau so you get a smooth top. It really depends on the block that you've got, Daniel. And to be honest, I think most people, it's nice to have a plateau every so often, but I think most people prefer a smooth top. No, Daniel's definitely not a troll. He's been on the channel for a long time, and he's on most of the lives that I'm on, and he's a gentle soul, and we like him. You know, I don't think anybody knows what works and what doesn't work. That's the bottom line. But if you can possibly save even one person by wearing a mask, why not do it? You know, I agree. Wearing a cotton mask is not going to stop it necessarily. But even if it's 20% efficient, and that means that you prevent somebody else catching it, out of, say, 1,000 people that you may come into contact with, 20% of those people will have less risk as a result of you wearing a mask. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yes, Sandro, that's true. That's very, very true. It's very possible, you know, that Boris, when he got it, supposedly he got it quite badly. Some people might say he kicked into gear after that. Are they still earmarked for the NHS, Tim? You can't get in, those proper masks, the reusable ones? Hey, Tree. The famous Tree. Steph, Tree's not a troll. Yeah, Daniel, I'm actually working on a pipe at the moment which is going to have some bog oak on the bottom of it. The bowl turned out to be really thin at the bottom, and I'm very conscious of that. I don't like sending out pipes which have got a very thin bottom, you know. So I'm putting an addition on that. That's going to be quite a cool pipe, hopefully, once it's done. But it's also one of those little projects that I'm doing in between pipes, because it's not. It's hopefully it'll look amazing when it's finished. My name is Simon, and I'm a pipeaholic. I have done such a pipe, Daniel, actually. That pipe went to the States. It was actually a really, really cool pipe. It's one of those pipes that I wanted to keep for myself. maybe I'll do it again. It was a Jekyll and Hyde pipe. I think. Who does a Jekyll and Hyde? Is it Chacon? I can't remember which company does it. There was a guy on YouTube who used to put up videos every so often from his car, an English guy from up north, and he used to say, instead of pipe, he used to say pap. I can't remember his name. Tim, you'll probably remember him. He had a Jekyll and Hyde pipe. I don't remember which company it was, but they are quite cool. No worries, Steph. We're all having fun. Rockin' steady. How you doing? I'm doing well. No, it's not Jonty Piper. Definitely not Jonty Piper. And maybe it's Peter. No, it's not ADZ either. He was up north, and he had a real northern accent, and he's always talking about his parp, like P-A-R-P, his parp. We all love you too, Steph and Skip. Skip, you maybe want to watch what she's putting in her pipe bowl. She's far too happy tonight. Yeah, it could well be. Sounds about right, Tim. Hey, we're all back on the caps there, Jimmy. Listen, you know what? We've all got our own opinions on this. Nobody really knows the truth. That's the bottom line. We'll just have to see how it plays out. And at the end of the day, the governments, you could say that governments are all conspiracy theorists, or they're in cahoots with the people making the masks, the PPE, and all that kind of thing. And you could be a conspiracy theorist, but when it comes to, I said this the other day on one of my videos, all of the governments in the world are doing the same thing, except with very few exceptions. Sweden is being held up as this champion of a country that's managed it without fine, but the vast majority of the world has been doing the same thing, the same pattern. So what you're saying is that every government in the world is in cahoots with each other over this. It's a dividing subject, but as long as we can have a chat in a decent way, it's fine. I can't agree with you on that, Jeff. I just can't agree with you on that. Respectful dialogue, absolutely. No harm in having a discussion. Look, we've had the flu and other things, and we live with the flu. But the flu wasn't as catchy, as virulent and indiscriminate as this virus. Well, I can tell you that does actually happen, Bird, because I had the virus back at the end of March, and I was unwell for about 3.5 weeks at the time, but my sense of smell and taste was, I didn't have that probably for about 6 weeks, something like that. Now we're getting to the crack of it. No decent leadership options in the US. Well, it depends if you're a Trump supporter or not, I guess. Thank you, Bird. But I agree. in principle I agree, but I agree as somebody who knows absolutely nothing about American politics. Daniel, it's a pleasure. Yo, Trump 2020. The T word. I just sort of look at it as a casual observer. I don't know if he's been good for the country, if he's not been good for the country. I just look at the person as a character, because that's all I see. It's very hard to empathise with people in the States because it doesn't affect me, and I don't see the day-to-day effects of policy or anything like that. But to me it just looks like, for the second time at least in the history that I can remember, you got two people and who just it's just interesting that that's what you end up with out of the millions of people that you have there. Yeah, Tam, I don't know, call it what you like. You can call it long COVID or post-viral fatigue. I've definitely got that in the lower half of my body. The actual virus itself, thankfully, and all of that hopefully is done and dusted, but I've definitely got something in the bottom half of my body. I've aches and pains all the time. And I had it when I had the infection. I couldn't sit still a lot of the time. Everything was hurting me. My backside, my hip joints, my knee joints, my thighs, just the whole time aching. And sometimes literally just sort of shifting in my chair, just to try and get comfortable. Yeah, our leaders too, Mike, I agree. Another Ronald Reagan. Yeah, sure. Let's get Arnold Schwarzenegger in while we're at it. Another actor. Yeah, I'm going to be your president. Did my skin feel like it was burning? I don't recall that. No, I can't do voice impressions. It really is a very impromptu thing. I can't do them like in a prepared kind of way. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, Tim. I mean, we had that with a lot of prime ministers. With Tony Blair, it was what's his name? You got to watch in the thick of it. I mean, that's really what it's like, isn't it? Yes, Eric, he smokes a pipe, and he smokes cigars, obviously, more famously. Cheers, Silver Stars. Both of them are tossers. You're probably right. Who was the last one, Tim, with Tony Blair, who pulled the strings? Do you remember? It was the Chief Whip, was it? Hey, North Country. Geppetto. Come on, Tim. You're the oracle here. Get those fingers tapping on that keyboard. Alistair Campbell, thank you, North Country Fisher. That's the way it goes. It's the right hand man. It's the tail wagging the dog. Yeah, I didn't like Blair at all, even though I'm generally vote Conservative, but that's not because I know them any better than Labour. It's just something which we've done traditionally. I'm one of those lazy traditional voters. That's sort of always done, so we just carry on doing it. I mean, this last election I had no choice, obviously. I was never going to vote for what's his face. Yeah, I did. If you watch the whole video, you'll see I was at JJ Fox's. I'd had a chat with somebody in the humidor. There is a bit of the clip on there. I picked up, which will hopefully be a great cigar. This is Monte Cristo Limited Edition 2019. Monte Cristo have done some phenomenal limited editions, so I'm looking forward to smoking that. Hopefully, when I do, I'll do a video. Excuse me. Yeah, Blair did have that kind of smile, didn't he? Well, talking about Cuban cigars and restrictions, you guys are down the Swanee again in America because Donald Trump has just taken you guys completely out of it. Barack Obama changed it and he allowed you to bring in cigars into the country for personal use. What's his face? Corbyn, yeah. But now, as of some date in September, you guys are not allowed to bring in any Cuban cigars. You're not allowed to stay in any Cuban establishment in Cuba, in any government-funded hotel, which is pretty much all the hotels. They've really, really ramped up the restrictions on Cuba. I don't know if you guys saw that. I actually, when I was in JJ Fox's, I bought the Cigar Aficionado magazine, which I don't really buy anymore, but because I was there, you can order them online, but it's illegal. You're not allowed to. Yes, Tam, absolutely. That's one way of putting it, OBX. What I do think, as a result of, there's obviously a lot of changes have happened as a result of COVID in the way we work and the way we commute and the way we interact with people and all of that, and time will tell whether we go back to our old ways. But one thing which I think should change, it probably won't, but it should, and that is countries should become more self-reliant. Countries should really start producing again and not rely on China. That's really how it should be. Hey PA, where are you? If you're in America, not anymore. Yeah, I know, Jimmy. Schwarzenegger can't be. I know. Yeah, so I mean, the amount of stuff, and we're all guilty of it. We all buy stuff from China, in Pennsylvania. Well, I think you'll find that the law has changed in the last few weeks. PA. Yeah, so I think that we really ought to go back to producing and being self-reliant. Of course, there's going to be trade in between countries, 100%. But, you know, just look at how when COVID first hit and countries were struggling to get PPE, countries were struggling to get ventilators and all that kind of thing. PPE is something which we can't do it simply because it's all been done en masse in China for so long. We've become so reliant on China. You know, and some people would say that, you know, if you want to talk about conspiracies, here's one that I will believe, and that is China started it so that all of that stuff which we needed came from China. You know, all the ventilators, all the PPE, all the creams, all the alcohols, all of that came from China initially. No, we don't, Tim, you're right. Well, let me just get that magazine. Let's see if that's right, PA. Hang on. God, my desk is a bit of a mess. Let's see if we can show you this. All right. Crackdown on Cuba. US tightens embargo, banning travellers from coming home with Cuban cigars and rum, and making Cuban hotels off limits to Americans. The cigar party is over. Americans are once again prohibited from coming back to the US with Cuban cigars and rum and can no longer stay in Cuban hotels, President Donald Trump announced in a speech on September the 23rd. New US sanctions leveled against Cuba have removed the permission for Americans traveling abroad to return home with Cuba's most famous exports, and also banned future US travelers from staying at any government-owned hotels on the island. The latter restriction essentially forces all future US visitors to stay in Airbnb-style lodgings in private homes, since the Cuban state holds full or majority ownership in all Cuban hotels. Trump's announcement was specifically aimed at businesses operated by the Cuban government. Anyway, that's the short. That's the long and short of it. So I hate to be the harbinger of bad news, but there it is. I don't know how much they will crack down on it. Things like buying on the internet and stuff like that. But you guys will have to suck it and see, really. See what happens if you do order it. John, I think that's a fantastic thing. Countries that send out aid to other countries, but you do have to look at proportions as well. You have to look at the numbers in your population compared to others. Lots of countries send out aid. The UK is very big in sending out aid. I don't know what it works out per capita proportionately to the US, but I know that we do send a lot of aid. That's all right, PA. Nicaragua too, really? That I didn't know. Hey, Jonathan. When it comes to facts, don't argue with Tim. It's quite simple. But you guys seem to be able to get your Cuban cigars. I mean, and they don't seem to be too worried about flaunting it either. There's interviews in that magazine. To be honest, that magazine is a bit useless these days. But the odd one or two interviews that they have, they've got guys there smoking Cuban cigars. There's pictures of people smoking Cuban cigars, so you do seem to get them. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why Trump has become so rigid about it. Excuse me. I don't know why he suddenly become so rigid about it. There was a feeling that relations were improving. Thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan Alexander Rodriguez Zambrano. An interesting name you got there. You don't quite expect to see Jonathan Alexander together with Rodriguez Zambrano. But I know you guys, you add both your mum and your dad's names, right? There you go, Tim's even humble with it. Yes, Mike, but they won't be buying your pipes, unfortunately, because you're a Canadian. You come from good stock, Tim. You know what they say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Ivan, I used to always, I don't say used to always, I like to try and spend money in all of them, to try and support them. But Davidoff, JJ Fox's, and 1A St James's Dunhill, that was the order of expensive. So Davidoff, always most expensive. Very nice shop. Sahakians are lovely people, but very expensive. Well, when I say very expensive, they do have a lot of very old and rare cigars. Edward Sahakian, who's the owner of Davidoff in London, he's got a huge stock of old-aged cigars, valuable cigars, limited edition cigars. And he brings them up every so often, and he sells them for a fortune. And the regular line cigars, they're in line with most of the retail shops, but they'll always be a couple of pounds more. JJ Fox's is the next step down, and 1A was always cheaper than all of them. Unfortunately, 1A has closed down, so now there is going to be another cigar shop opening up there, which I'm very happy about. We'll see what their prices are like. You can get Cuban cigars, Ivan, for less than £15, but only really small ones, like the H. Upmann Half Corona. But if you buy online, then you can get all cigars pretty much under £15 each. You just got to be prepared to buy a box at a time when you're buying online. Hey Cliff, how you doing? Do I order cigars from the US, Daniel? Not anymore. I used to a lot, but none these days. Every so often I'll get a box of Serie V Milanios, Olivas, and maybe some Undercrowns, but they last a long time because I don't smoke them that often. So I've got a few left, but that's probably the only ones that I would. Padrons maybe I would as well if I could afford them, but that's about it. OBX, that's exactly my point. I don't know. Kirby Allison has done a few videos at Davidoff, but I'm going to check that out. I am subscribed to him, so thank you for that time. Yeah, definitely rest in peace, Sean Connery. We spoke about that earlier on at the beginning of the video. got through this cigar quite quickly. It's kind of falling apart. The wrapper's unravelling. Yeah, the prices are, Ivan, they are a bit crazy. To be honest, I went to Zurich, Switzerland, a couple of years ago, and I popped into the Davidoff shop there, and their cigars were more expensive than Cuban cigars. I found that to be ridiculous. A box of Padron 2000 Maduro. Yeah, the 2000s, they're the run-of-the-mill Padrons, which I can't remember if I've had one or not, but they're supposed to be really good, middle-of-the-road cigars. The only they kind of remind me of Arturo Fuentes, like the 898s, that kind of thing. Run of the mill, good cigar you can rely on with a middle of the road tobacco, nutty, creamy kind of flavour. Good night, Jeff. I have smoked GLPs quite nice, Daniel. It's a nice tobacco, and I have done a video on it. I did a 3-way video of Quiet Nights, Penzance and Star of the East, and actually Quiet Nights I think won out on that day. Yeah, Hobby Supplies, Mike, doesn't always work anymore. Night, John. I Havanas is a great website. They've had a little bit of issues in the last couple of days, but I find them to be very good. Prices are fantastic. Steph and Skip are back. Exotic tea. Okay, that's a good one. Most people that I send packages to in the States nowadays, they get from me a used vintage toy train set parts. That's what I send nowadays, and they seem to get through just fine. Monogram socks, that's a good one. You just have to think of something random, that's all. It does make us lawbreakers though. Ooh, Daniel, shots fired. 3 carloads of Tobacco Treaters. I have smoked a Toscano, Moshen. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. When I was in Italy, I went to Venice, I don't know, a year ago or so, and I bought a pack of 5 Toscanos just because I wanted to try the Toscanos. They're quite legendary cigars. A cool concept. They're kind of thin on both ends and get thicker in the middle. And a lot of people, they just snap them in half and smoke both ends. But they're just really, they like, I think they've got a Kentucky kind of cigar leaf in there. I think they're grown in Italy. I just didn't like it. It was just too harsh for me. Right, this cigar has gone out and we're going to leave it. That's actually one of the quickest cigars I've had in a while. Yeah, Mike's live was He had a lot of people on tonight. I don't know how you kept up with it, Mike. The messages were flying at one stage. But did you notice how the numbers dropped off as soon as the pipe was won? I thought that was funny. Yeah, you did very well tonight, Mike. Yeah, your plan worked. At the end of the day, that's what happened. As you said, how many out of those 75, 68 or 69 got involved? So obviously they all wanted to be in on it, but nevertheless, you got them to chat. Yeah. It was a stunning pipe, Mike, and you know that would have been one that I could have converted as well. You didn't tell me about that one, Mike. Oh no, maybe you did actually. No, you had one, a smoked one, I think, on your site a while back. Smoking pipes in Europe, the European smoking pipes, has one similar to that. It's been on there for a long time. I've been eyeing it for so long. But I think that one is just, the shank is just a little bit too narrow for me to risk converting it. Am I in the mood for a joke, Daniel? As long as it's clean. 3 brothers, 3 sisters, 3 sons and daughter, and a daughter. You can take it. We saw that one already, Daniel. 14.5 mil. As long as it's a straight shank, in other words, it could be a bent pipe, but as long as it's not, some of their shanks are curved, and the direction of the mortise is a bit ski-whiff. As long as it's, I can work with 14 mil, as long as it's, just about, as long as the mortise is straight down the middle of that shank. But I probably wouldn't want to risk it at 14.5 mil. Generally myself, the pipes that I make, I try to stick to around 16 mil. But it can be done at 14 mil. Oh man, you're too kind, Mike. 14.5 mil. $14.5 mil. Well, the drill is 10.2 mil, so that leaves me with a mil on each side. It's a bit risky. It's a bit risky, Mike, if I'm honest. You have a pipe that's either lets in too much air or gets clogged. I'd have to see the pipe really. It's hard to say. If it gets clogged, I mean, that's usually to do with how you load your pipe, but it could also be with how the draft hole is. If it's letting in too much air, if assuming that you're loading it exactly the same way as you load any other pipe, then it could well be that the draft hole is letting in bits of tobacco. And what you might try is using a mesh filter and see if that helps. And what you might find then is that the draw is too open if you've got a really wide drill, and then pack your bowl a little bit tighter, but use a mesh or some filt pads or anything like that that will stop, or nodding stones, just that will stop little bits of tobacco getting into the pipe, and see if that works. It's in 9mm. Okay, so and you don't use a filter. Well, if you don't use a filter and it's 9mm, that answers you why it's wide open, because it's wide open. You've got a big chamber in there. But the draw itself, it really depends on the drill, even with a 9mm mortise. A filter will stop gunk coming up the pipe, that's for sure. But you shouldn't really be getting loads of stuff coming up the pipe if it's drilled right. What you could do as well is, and you could also, you could do what Sandra says, put an adapter in, but you'll still have a hole there. So if whatever reason that the tobacco is coming up there, it might still do that. But you could try adapting the way you load your pipe. You could try using what's called the Frank method. You can check it out on YouTube, and just try and load it so that you have, essentially you take a big clump of tobacco and you squeeze it together and just load it at once into the pipe. So if you squeeze it and load it in and you let go, that springiness will kind of tighten it against the walls of the pipe, leaving a vacuum at the bottom of the pipe. And then smoke it. Obviously when you tap it, it's going to collapse after a while, but it should at least mean that you have a looser kind of situation down there. That might help as well. But the two things you need to check is, number one is the draft, see if it's too wide. If it's bored too wide, then use a mesh or something to stop the tobacco getting up there. But it sounds to me that you just need to be more consistent with how you load your pipe, because if you're saying sometimes it's too loose and sometimes it's too tight, you might just want to just try and get a more consistent way of loading your pipe. Alright, I think I'm going to call it a day. What's the time now? It's 10 to 2. So I'm going to say my thank yous. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, James. Thank you, Steph. Thank you, Mike, Briar Blues. Thank you, Sandro Chow. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, PA Piper. Thank you, James. I think I've said you already. Thank you, Sam Sambrook. Thank you, Cliff. Thank you, Mike Gamecock Piper. Thank you, Sean Connery. I like that handle. Big shoes to fill. Thank you, Eric. And thank you, Motion. John, if you're still there, thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure. It's really been a busy. Thank you, Scotty. A busy day. Thank you, Rock and Steady. And Tim, thank you. Boris, thank you. Ron, thank you. Hopefully see you tomorrow night, Ron, all being well, if timing works out. Ciao, Sandro. Thank you, Boca. Daniel, yes, you can smoke a filtered pipe without a filter. Not a problem. Tree, good night. Thanks very much, everybody. I'm going to wish you all well, and I will catch you on the next one.